Hey there, hey, this is Michelle with Brilliant Quest, and today I'm going to be taking you through a guide to help you to alleviate mental pain. This is for when it hurts to think. This is for when you're having those days of mental struggle. This is for when you're in a slump and you can't get out of it. So come on in, the water's fine, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do when you are attempting to relieve the mental pain, do not fall into the usual traps. And the usual traps, whether you realize it or not, there is a high percentage of the population that their go-to medicine for when they're in mental pain is not drugs. I know you thought I was going to say drugs. No, it's above drugs. It is retail therapy. It is spending to feel better. Study after study has shown that there is a real correlation between endorphins and when you spend to get something. There are a lot of people that don't realize they don't want what they're buying. They want the reward, the dopamine hit, the serotonin trigger, the whole process of the neurotransmitters firing for them to feel some pleasure to offset the pain. If you know someone, and I'm not saying it's you, but if you know someone who is a hoarder, and when I say a hoarder, not just necessarily keeping on to everything, but constantly buying stuff and hoarding it, and they never use it. It's just sitting in a bedroom or closet, on a bed, on a treadmill, or something like that. 9 times out of 10, it is an outward reflection of their attempt to work with the mental pain, anguish, and torment inside. And you can see how that's going, you know? Sure, go and continue to spend your money to try to help your pain. But is that going to make your credit cards any better? Are they going to make you have more pain when it's time to pay them? So think about that. And of course, the low-hanging fruit one is self-medicating with drugs. That one, there's so many videos, so I'm not going to even go into that. You already know. That ain't good for you. Stop it, boo. Okay. So, but I did want to make sure that I said that one, because the spending has got to stop if you want the mental pain to pull up. And the sad part is when you stop spending, the first feelings you have are even more pain, because you feel like you're being denied. You feel like you're having to struggle. You're feeling like you're being restricted. You're feeling like your freedom is being taken away, when it's the very opposite. You are getting more freedom because you are unloosening or loosening the noose around your neck of debt. Okay. All right. So after you've done that, whether it be the vices of spending or self-medicating or whatever it may be, we need to stop, and we got to purge. Okay. When I was going through some of my darkest times, and I hate to say I'm not the spend, retail therapy person now, and I owe it to a relative who was, and I learned through their experience, and so I'm thankful that I learned that, and that's not a go-to. All right, but sugar, okay, anyway, y'all pray for me. Okay, so but you want to purge, and I will continuously shout it from the rooftops. Some of the best healing you're going to get is healing when you are self-advocating through writing it out, through journaling. If you don't like that word journal, don't say the word. Just say, I got to write it out. You know how people say, I got to work it out? I got to write it out, because the writing is the work. I might start saying that. The writing is the work. But to purge it out, you want to write out all of the stuff that's causing you pain. And I do not want you writing this in a journal, because this is negative energy that we don't want to hold on to. So I would like for you to get scrap paper. I would like you to get stuff that burns easily, because what you're going to do is you're going to scream, write it out. If you've got to write in big words with exclamation points, if you've got to doodle until it comes out, no matter how painful it is, how much you don't want to look at it, how much you might need to confess something that you've been ignoring and not facing. You've got to get all of that out, because the mental pain is a constipation of cramped together energy that no longer can serve you. It can only cause you pain. And so it's doing its job. And so pain is an indicator that you need to get it out. All right. So once you do that, I want you to tear up the paper and get something safe. Get a metal bowl, something that won't burn. And in a controlled way where you're not going to burn up your house or anything like that, I want you to burn that stuff to ashes. I'm talking about, if you see little pieces of white notebook paper that's still unburned, throw the other ashes away. And when you throw them away, thank them for what they came to do, but ask them, don't come back in no more, and get rid of them. And then those other little pieces, burn them and do the same. You are energetically clearing out a lot of the compressed, suppressed, and constipated energy that has now become a blockage instead of a flow. Okay. All right. So then you want to identify and work on reducing the repetitive and invasive thoughts. It is important for you to understand that every thought you have is not your own. So don't trust every thought. All right. When you have thoughts that cause you to be like, or when you have thoughts of something that you did in the past that you are embarrassed or ashamed of that will come, don't just push it away and push it back down. Be like, oh, caught you. You are free to go. And if you need to, write out what the thought was. Tell it, thank you for the lessons that you've brought. I've got the lesson. I'm graduating. And now, if you can't, cross it, if you can't burn it or whatever, cross it out, run the pen over it, erase it out. And if you can, burn that one too. Okay. But the repetitive and invasive thoughts, we let those run free too much. And I'm telling you, it's time to start arresting them and stopping them in their tracks. All right. Okay. So far we have talked about stopping the vices, retail therapy, drugs. Then we've talked about purging. We have talked about writing it all out. And we've talked about identifying and arresting recurring, repetitive, invasive thoughts. All right. So then now we're going to move to some of the practical things that I want you to do. And one of them involves AI. Okay. And I think this one will probably be fun for you. Now, I will tell you, this is part of what we would call a brief therapy, where you story it out. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to use the story power to come to your rescue. And what I want you to do is I want you to take your situation and you're going to write a story of someone else with this situation. But instead, you're going to make believe and you're going to make up what they did to make it through it so that they could succeed. Now, I want you to make sure that you put in all the feelings, emotions, and behaviors that were negative for you into the story so that this character, this fictional character, can work through it. Now, if you say, Michelle, I am not a writer, I'm not doing that. Guess what, boo-boo? You don't have to. What you can do is you can go to the free versions of AI, whether it be Copilot or it be Gemini at this particular time. Well, Copilot is Bing as well. And you can tell Bing, I want to write a story. Now, this is a thing that I have had some success with working through things that cause mental pain. Here's an example of what I'm talking about with the story, and I will include this prompt in the description for you to copy it and then turn it into your own. So here is where you see that I wrote the prompt for a story. I included some mental struggles and pains that the character would go through. I gave it a metaphor, and I asked for AI to write it in where a 12-year-old could read it. So here it is. Tell the AI to write this story and explain it in a way that a 12-year-old would understand it. Baby, those stories that AI comes out with are amazing because they say things like, and it's so cute. They take on the tone of talking to a sixth grader. Okay. Okay. So what you're going to do is with AI, like I said, you're going to tell it the main points that you want. You're going to ask it to come up with clever, ingenious, but practical ways that are unique. So it's clever, ingenious, unique, but practical, meaning they're doable ways of how this character worked through these issues in this short story, of course. Okay. And then this is the thing that you're going to have to feed into AI. You're going to find a metaphor or some. And what you're doing is finding a metaphor that resonates with you. And once you find that metaphor that resonates with you with that, something as simple as hindsight is 2020. Tell it, include this metaphor of hindsight being 2020 in aiding the character to figure out the situation. Doing that, press the button. And baby, oh my goodness, you can keep telling it, okay, give me another one. Give me another one. And this is why AI is taking off so much and being so powerful for people. I know you've seen so many people trying to tell you how to make money with AI. Well, honey, right now, we're going to work the power of story so that AI can help us to get some ideas, some tweaks on moving through the situations that cause us pain and anguish. Remember, this is about getting it done. And this is about brief therapies that are not harmful, where you do more harm than good. Okay. All right. After that, I want you to do two things. Now, remember, this is dealing with the practicalness of it. So the first thing is we're going to use the story power to build a fictional character. We're going to use AI to help us write a short story with what is happening with us, including our emotions, feelings, and behaviors. We're going to tell it to write a short story to explain it to a 12-year-old or entertain a 12-year-old. And we're going to make sure that we pick at least one good metaphor as part of how the hero of the story solved it. And then the next thing is You're going to use what I call daydream jump offs. Now, write this down. This is what you're going to start practicing using when you catch yourself daydreaming and drifting off into thought. And it's going to be, I wonder what it would feel like if, and then you're going to put, I talked about future casting in a previous video, but future casting is kind of like visualization, but future casting is where you put yourself somewhere, then you walk yourself back to work it through. So it's not where you're just trying to figure out what you want and then letting serendipity happen. This is where you're putting it there and then you're walking yourself to it with determination and intent. So I wonder what it would feel like if, and then put in what it is. That's when you catch yourself daydreaming. And then the last part of this middle practical section is, I want you to employ some things that do not cost you money, but they will have greater impact than if you had spent money if you use them. And that is breath, movement, strategic thoughts, and silence. Here in Georgia, in Jasper, there is this retreat that you can go to, and it's called the Silence Retreat, and it has a long waiting list. And I tried to get into it for about 4 years, and so I just gave up and did it on my own. But it's where you go to a retreat with others, and you take a vow of silence for the 11 days. 11 days, y'all. You don't speak a word for 11 days. And they have, a structure to it where you can write out stuff to bring, to a centralized area. I do think they have 1 or 2 periods where you can say something. And then, of course, if there are emergencies, you can, do something. But it's where you're spending a lot of time being silent, reflective, meditating. They have places where you walk around. They ask you to leave your electronics at home, but you can't do that, but they don't really want you to do that. But the power of silence is so important because silence helps you to realign yourself so that you get to have more of a clear pathway and channel throughout not only your mind, but also through your chakras, through your meridians. I'm talking Eastern mind, Eastern medicine, Western mind. That's a great book by Judith. I'll put it here. It's a manual. It'll just really help you. But it's more of a reference manual, but I'm just trying to give you some of the things that will help you. So silence. And then of course, breath. With breath is the first gift you get when you come into this world, and it's the last gift you will give back to this world. So breath work is a way for you to suss out deep, entrenched trauma, shock, feelings. It is a way for you to release. So if you find somewhere that's offering breath work, please take advantage of it. The reason why I'm not telling you to do breath work on your own is because you need someone to sit with you, to observe you, to make sure you don't do harm, to yourself when things come up. Because sometimes things can be very violent. They can, have you thrashing. They will take you back to a moment and you might be fighting. You don't even realize it. So you need some help. So don't do breath work on your own. Have someone there with you. But if you're doing regular breathing, you can of course do rhythmic breathing, pranayamic breathing. Wim Hof has breathing techniques, just different techniques that you can do that way. And then of course, movement. 20-minute walk equivalent to Prozac. Walking as if you're late to catch a flight. A brisk walk does wonders. Enough said. Much about movement, Qigong, Tai Chi, some of the ancient Asian ways of moving the energy through the body. You can find free YouTube videos to take you through those practices. Ask me how I know. All right. Okay. So then here's the last part that I want to make sure that I give you on how to relieve this mental pain. This is a guide, when it hurts to think. Okay. And that is going to be, you want to identify your task avoidance. You can tell when you've got some mental anguish, pain, and struggle going on when there are tasks that you avoid. And I am not talking about hard tasks only. I'm talking about routine tasks, like making your bed, if that's a thing for you. Now, I'm not trying to say you got to make your bed. I'm not Jordan Peterson here telling you got to make your bed. I'm simply saying, if your task in the morning or your part of your routine in the morning is to make your bed and you stop because it becomes complicated for you and you're avoiding the task, that's an indicator. You got some mental pain and anguish you got to deal with. Housework, taking care of yourself, washing the dishes, showering on the regular. Now it's up to you how much you shower, but if you're not doing it, and the reason why you're not doing it is because your mind is telling you it's difficult, then this one just came to me. Okay. How I was raised that on Saturday mornings, you get up and you do your chores. And the first thing you do is when you get up, you strip the bed because it's time to wash the linens, and that and dishes. Those were the 2 things that I knew we had to make sure. And when I say dishes, I'm not talking about just the dirty ones. I'm talking about if there were dishes that had been in the cupboard too long. They needed to be rinsed, or as my grandfather would say, rinsed off, dried, and put back up, just different little things. Even silverware. Yes, my grandparents had silverware. We had to polish silverware, all this kind of stuff. So those are areas that let me know when I'm starting to get mental pain and anguish because of the task avoidance of them. And there have been times when I've caught myself. So right now, I have this little app, and it's called Don't Break the Chain. And it was based off of Jerry Seinfeld's way he's so prolific at joke writing. And he talked about, he has a calendar, and it's called Don't Break the Chain, where he X's off each day, or, whenever he writes. And his goal is to simply be able to put an X through that day that he did it. So I've used that many times to get back on track with tasks that my mind would say, we don't have enough energy to do that. And I will say that now, this is my understanding. I don't have anything past anecdotal data for this, but in my observance of task avoidance when you're in mental pain and anguish, it is about prioritizing what the brain is going to be able to deal with to help you to survive. And if it believes that washing the dishes, changing the linen, or for some people just showering on the regular and combing your hair are going to be things that give you low value for survival, it's going to throw up barriers to keep you from expending that precious energy that it's trying to use just to help you to survive. And thus, it will make them complicated. I remember back during my odyssey of going through the change, that there would be days where I would have to stand in my room and beg myself, just take the sheet off the bed. And my brain would fight me and say, it's going to be so difficult to get these back on, and not back on, but to get this new set on. Why don't you just rest a little? Why don't you just go and do this or do that? And I was like, Michelle, we're not going to be cuckoo. We're going to do this. And so I think I've told you about setting timers. Like I have to set timers to do things. These were part of my rehabilitative stages to get me back to now, to where I am lucid. I am happy. I am able to do the things that I can do. And it helped me to understand the power of simple, no-brainer routines, things that you just know. I know what I get done on Saturday mornings in an hour. I know I'll be done with X, Y, and Z in the hour. I will have the first load of clothes, washed, the bed stripped. I know that I will have vacuum, those different little things that it takes to keep you going. Because if you allow yourself to give in when you're having this mental pain and you don't take care of yourself and you look around and everything is a mess, whether you are a clean person or a slob, it's still going to give more mental pain to you because your mind is having to ignore the clutter. And so that's a problem too. The next one is you want to, when you're trying to work through task avoidance, talk yourself through the process. So talking yourself through the process doesn't matter. Excuse me. It doesn't matter if somebody thinks you're crazy. You can mutter to yourself through the process. You can continuously remind yourself, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Okay, I got that done. Okay, next we're going to do blah, blah, blah. And talk yourself through the process because it will help. Oh, yes, it will. And then what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you celebrate your win of alleviating some of the stuff that you were task avoidant, because you're not going to be able to tackle them all. You'll have to build up a muscle, of tackling bigger and bigger things. Like, there is a table in my house that collects stuff. And it was an area that I recently identified that has been task avoidant for me. And I have committed to removing one item. Now, y'all know what it is. I've already told you. It's paper. It's paper. And I'm like, we're going to remove one thing. Now, I've gotten to the point where it's not all the crap that comes in the mail. It's important stuff that I'm like, okay, I'll file this. See, that's what it gets me. It's important enough that you need to keep it for a few years. I'll file this. And so now, one item, and I must find its proper place. It must be filed. And I'm doing it, y'all. I'm doing it. Because like I said, I'm not going to ask you to do something that came off the top of my dome. No, I'm telling you, this is what you do when you have mental pain. And everybody at some time or another is going to struggle with this. So why not use this guide to help you? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recap this. And then what I want you to do is I want you to write in the comments. If you made it this far, write in the comments, paper. That's what I want. I want you to write paper. Let me know you made it to this point. Okay. All right. So here's a recap of this guide of what I want you to do to help yourself when you need to relieve your mental pain. First thing is, and I'm sorry, guys, nose itching, allergies. First thing is, we're going to deal with those vices. And those vices, look and see if you're spending to get quick hits of feel good. And if you are, of course, stop it, but evaluate it and then make a realistic game plan of how you're going to wean yourself. I don't want you to try to go cold turkey. Well, you might if your credit cards tell you that you're going cold turkey, but wean yourself. Do not spend if you know it's just going to be stuff that you hoard, that it's not something that you're going to use anytime soon. And go through some of that stuff. And if you know people who could make use of it, now don't give crap away to people. Don't foist your crap on other people. But donate. And I will say this, start with people you know, and then donate out. Because when you start with people you know, it gives a reason and a purpose for the purchase. And and thus it gives you some more of that dopamine boost, but in a good way, because it's a win-win for everyone. Okay. Because sometimes, depending on how far gone you're in this, when you donate, sometimes you're doing it because you feel forced to donate. And so there's some residual negative energy because you had to get rid of your stuff, whether it be out of shame, embarrassment, or somebody's forcing you to. So that's why I say find people to give it a good home, you know? And yeah, it's going to have a tag still on it. They'll be grateful. They'll know it's new. But make sure you don't give them crap, you know, but start that way first so that you can at least get yourself some good feel goods, you know, in working with that. And if it be drugs, we already know. Now I'm going to tell y'all, I do well and then I don't, but I do well and then I don't with my sugar. And right now I'm doing well. Okay. That's what I'll just say. I'm doing well. Okay. But work on whatever it is. Don't self-medicate. The next thing is you're going to purge. We're going to write out the stuff. We're going to burn that stuff and tell it good riddance. You're going to also work on your recurring and repetitive and invasive thoughts to stop them. Next, you're going to do some practical stuff. And I'm going to encourage you to do a story using AI to help you, where you write it at the level of a 12-year-old and you put in the areas that are causing you mental pain and any emotions, feelings, and behaviors associated with that, but you turn it into a fiction story so that that character can have their journey and work through it. Put in a metaphor or metaphors that resonate with you to tell the AI that you want to use these as a guiding principle as to how the character made it through. All right. And I forgot to tell you, the reason why I want you to put that metaphor in there is because that causes the AI to not spit out something generic that would suffice for anyone. When you put in the metaphor that resonates with you, it gives the story more oomph and zhuzh to scratch where you're itching. Okay, you got it. All right. The next one thing is when you catch yourself daydreaming. I call it the daydream jump off. When you catch yourself daydreaming, start getting in the habit of using this phrase. I wonder what it would feel like if, and then put whatever it is behind that. What that does is you catch yourself in the alpha state where you're highly suggestible and you cause yourself to start taking on what it is that comes behind the I wonder what would happen if, you know, or how I would feel if. And it's a brief or faster therapy. Then the last thing is we're going to look at identifying our task avoidance. And one of the areas I want you to concentrate on at first is finding those areas of stuff that you would routinely do that have for some reason become mentally complicated and you avoid them. They're going to be a lot of times in the areas of your cleaning the home, cleaning yourself, doing the I don't like to use the word chores, but they're household chores and things, because the brain is so wrapped up in torment, torture, and stress and strain that it is trying to partition that away. So it's making it more difficult. But by stopping that and getting your brain to work with you, you lower a lot of the pain. So it's kind of like the brain is trying to help you, but it's making things worse. So that's why I want you to work on that. So guess what? Yes, I want you to go ahead and I want you to watch this next Brilliant Quest video. It's really going to help you. It really is. So go on and watch that. Don't forget, but before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, ring the notification bell. And don't forget to check out the description where if you want to book a one-on-one with me, the links are there. And if you say, hey, Michelle, I just want to support the channel, there are various ways for you to support the channel monetarily. Okay, so my name is Michelle. I am your big sis with Brilliant Quest, and I am going to see you sooner than later. Bye.